What's going on, guys? Tony Hannity's here from LazyTechGuys.com, and welcome to Mobile Moments, episode 10. I believe or is it 9? I don't even know. Anyways, recorded on April 29th, 2015. Let me take this off because I really don't need this on my head. I can hear myself. Yay! So here's the deal, guys. Today, we're going to be talking a little in detail regarding what happened at the Microsoft Build conference and the keynote. The overall atmosphere about Microsoft's keynote really pointed toward what is happening with Windows 10 with regards to its development cycle and also its initial release. Now, unfortunately, we still have yet to receive a concrete date from Microsoft. But as we mentioned in a previous podcast of the LTG show, the CEO and president of AMD inadvertently blurted out July. So we're not quite sure if that's RTM or actually released to consumer, but we'll probably find out more about that later on. Now, there were a number of other announcements regarding Windows 10 and its development and what they are doing for developers to make the Windows platform a lot more amicable and exciting. And I've got to say, the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the idea that developers that run Android or iOS applications will now be able to essentially, quote unquote, port those apps over to Windows 10. Now, I say port with air quotes because it's not as easy as just picking up your app and then dropping it into the Windows Store. Although they do mention that it's not completely difficult. The way that it's done is if you've written an app in either Java, C++ on Android, or on the side of iOS, you've used Objective-C, they will, quote, enable developers to leverage their current code and current skills to start building those Windows applications in the store and be able to extend those applications. So the way it's going to work is if you have an app, let's just say Candy Crush, because that app was actually in a sense ported from, I don't think they mentioned if it was iOS or Android. I believe, I want to say Android. In any event, it was ported from one of the competing platforms. And in the code base, when they brought it over to Windows 10, they had to recompile it. So it's, again, it's a few more button presses than just click, bang, boom. But once it was recompiled and the application itself recognized some of the newer APIs as APIs that it can communicate with and work with, at that point, the application seemed to run fine. I personally have not used Candy Crush on Windows Phone, nor have I used it anywhere else. So I can't really speak to the validity of how good or how bad the app is when it made its way to Windows Phone. But anecdotally, the people that I do know that own Windows Phone and are Candy Crush saga people, they seem to enjoy it pretty well. So as I mentioned, it needs to be able to communicate with these APIs in order to take full advantage of the Microsoft ecosystem and what it has to offer. And obviously, if it's on Android, it's communicating with the Google Play APIs. And Google Play Services APIs are extremely vast. They're very integrated. They go fairly deep into the application. And a lot of it is obviously for data mining and things like that. One example that you can think of is Google Play Games, which is that achievements kind of app where you can see what your friends are playing and how good they are at those games. And then you can play against them and show off your achievements on Google Plus and things like that. As it is right now, Microsoft has something like that very similarly. It's called Xbox. And the Xbox app, which we've already seen, is not only going to stay on the Xbox One, but it's also coming to Windows 10. And with a game like Candy Crush, which I believe, well, I don't think it has it right now, but it could have the Xbox Live moniker attached to it, which would mean you would be able to track your achievements alongside with your friends and whoever else that you follow in the Xbox ecosystem. And it's things like that that Microsoft has done to, in a sense, mimic what Google has on their in their Play services. And that is kind of a deficit when it comes to the amount of available APIs that are on just AOSP, which is the open source project. In essence, Google wants you to use their services, obviously. So when they talk about new APIs, we've released 5,000 new APIs. Majority of those APIs are directly tied to Google Play services and being part of the Google branded ecosystem where you get Gmail, Maps, things like that. And you, as a user of Android that maybe is more Western Hemisphere kind of oriented, that's fine for you. But in other countries, China for one, they don't use Google whatsoever. But Android, AOSP Android, is extremely prevalent. Even with the Apple iPhone being sold there now, Android is still king when it comes to mobile operating systems in China. But the APIs that those developers have, they're not crippled, but they're just not as vast. And if Microsoft can get a somewhat of a list of APIs that are similar to what Google is offering for the Google branded Android apps versus the AOSP Android apps, then this is a good thing. We still don't know how easy it's going to be for Android and iOS developers, but what this does is, in essence, it tells a developer, hey, up until now, you've had to make a choice to develop for iOS, Android, and then some of the unfortunately lesser popular operating systems that are out there. And if you're a mom and pop shop developer, you're really just going to develop for maybe just one or possibly two operating systems. But trying to juggle your time between two operating systems may be a lot harder than you thought. So then you focus just on one. When you port your app to Windows, to a certain degree, you can still just put your emphasis and dedicate your time on one ecosystem, with the same code base, but it would in essence be working on two ecosystems. So let's take Snapchat, for example. I use them as an example because they had third-party APIs that they pulled, so third-party apps couldn't use Snapchat. For a while on Windows Phone, there was a third-party app for Snapchat, but since Snapchat pulled that API, that app is no use whatsoever. You can't even use it. So now, if the Snapchat developers, the official Snapchat developers, decide, hey, we're going to use the same code from, let's say, iOS, for example, and I don't know which would be, if there's one that's easier to move over to Windows or not, but let's just say, for argument's sake, we're going to use our iOS code, the C plus, the what they call it. I should know this. The Objective C code on iOS. We're going to use that code. We're going to move it over, and we're going to take advantage of this new tool that Microsoft talked about, called the Visual Studio Code. Right now, it's a free preview. It's available on Linux, which is amazing, Windows, obviously, and then OS 10. So if you want to develop your iOS app and try to see how it would work in Windows 10, you could still do that even on your Mac. And so with that being said, they could move that over, test it out in a VR, not VR, but, virtual environment, if you will, like Hyper-V or something, and see how it works as a Windows universal app. And that's the key term there. It's not just a Windows Phone app. This would make your app a Windows universal app, meaning, if you remember, that app would play not only on small screens, but large screens, and also HoloLens, or what other iteration comes out of that from other companies. But you could effectively have your Snapchat in real space while you're wearing your HoloLens visor, and you could be snappy chatting. I don't know what you kids do with Snapchat. I still don't understand the benefits of it. But whatever the case may be, this is really awesome news, and I'm really trying to be very excited about it and optimistic. But the reason why I'm hesitant is a number of things. It's one thing to promise, and as I do work for Microsoft, these are all my own opinions. So I'll put that right there if I say anything else later on. But um, it's one thing to promise, but when it comes to delivery, Microsoft has a target on their back because they're putting a lot of emphasis on this. And if they somehow burn developers by saying something as like, well, your app is good, but we don't want to put that into our app store, because if you don't know, the Windows Phone App Store and the Windows App Store are both very curated. Like you can't just have your run of the mill app and then just throw it into the app store and hope that people install it and buy it or whatever. It needs to be reviewed, similar to iPhone. But whereas with Google, as long as you're not breaking too many rules, then it's usually within a few hours it's in the Google Play Store. So with Microsoft, it's a little bit more structured, which is a good thing. I mean, how many times have you heard malware on a Windows Phone? I guess you could argue that's because no one uses it. Ha ha ha. But it's probably none, because it just doesn't happen. But so how is the interaction between Microsoft and developers going to be, for just kind of continuing that relationship with this push? The second thing is overall, developers have been a little hesitant also to develop for Windows, not just because of the overall market, but because the handsets are not to par with what you'll find in Android or for the likes of like the iPhone. The last flagship device that we've had for Windows Phone was, I guess, maybe the 928, and that was, at least here in the United States, that was just on AT&T, and it obviously didn't do like tremendously. Before that, there was the Icon on Verizon, 925, and then most notably the 1020 and the 1525, which was the 6-inch phone on AT&T as well too. I mean, they did okay, but the problem was, spec per spec between these operating systems. Microsoft now, as we've seen, especially with Mobile World Congress, they put a lot of their a lot of their effort into the lower end phones. And I guess you could argue that Android as well has a lot of lower end phones, and these apps work on these lower end phones as well too. It's really about the ecosystem, or rather the operating system, being most up to date. I guess for Android, the minimum requirement for an app to be worth of any of its salt, to get the most eyeballs on it, would be KitKat, maybe Jelly Bean. On Windows Phone, from this point on, it would have to be Windows 10. And they did mention, when Windows 10 comes out, it'll be upgradable for desktop for free for a year. I'm sure they're doing something similar to that for Windows Phone. But I think with Windows Phone, with like the lower end phones that are running on 512 megabits of RAM or maybe 1 gigabyte of RAM, going to Windows 10 might not be feasible. And so we're back to the whole, it might not be on par, and again, might not be worth the time of some of the developers. And that is a concern that as this moves forward, great, maybe in the summer, Microsoft will launch a brand new Lumia that is top notch, best of the best, beats out the LG G4, takes poo-poos on top of the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. I mean, maybe that would be the case, but what about after that? I mean, what other OEMs? Like, is LG going to get back into the Windows Phone game? I think they said no. Same thing with Samsung. I mean, who else is out there? HTC tried with the HTC One M8 with Windows Phone. It was a great phone, but very slim to none. People bought it. So we're really just focusing on the Lumia lines directly from Microsoft. So I would say that's a big concern that people have. And really, we could speculate to the end of time, but we're really not going to know how it is moving forward for that. And then I'd say the last thing is, as I mentioned, as a developer, mom and pop developer, you and 3 guys and a girl just coding away. You're just doing code crams till 4 a.m, trying to get a stupid game like Temple Run to work. I mean, if you remember, it was on iOS first, and then they moved it to Android, and there were so many like I would say there was a lot of issues when it first came to Android. They had to limit the versions, or rather, they had to limit the kind of handsets that it would be allowed to be downloaded on. Then they released more handsets to allow. So it's stuff like that being able to troubleshoot with not only on the developer side, but also to be able to work with the operating system side. Say, okay, why does our app not communicate with this API or whatever the case may be? And the thing is, now, although Microsoft says you can move your app over here and you won't have to write three different apps, you could feasibly write maybe two different apps, and one of those apps would also run on Windows. That's true, but it's also not true, because they would still have to answer as a developer for Windows Phone and say, hey, this doesn't work on my Lumia 535, and according to the store, it's supposed to work. You got to fix it. It's like, oh, well, in Visual Studio said it would work. I guess we got to go get a 535. I mean, it's becoming back to the whole, I didn't want to invest into three operating systems, and now I am. So again, I'm trying to be very positive and optimistic about this because I really want this to work. I really hate the argument that no one's on Windows Phone because there's no apps, because it's true. There are very few of the AAA apps that you would come to expect on a mobile operating system. And the low barrier entry of making this possible is really exciting, but the proof is going to be in the pudding, and the execution of it, we'll find out probably later on this year when we start seeing things like Snapchat and things like Instagram with video. Instagram beta on Windows Phone is what it is. It is just beta. It's so basic. It hasn't been updated in months, if not years, if that's even a thing. And hopefully Windows 10 would allow Facebook and Instagram to say, oh, well, let's remove the beta tag. Let's just move over our Android app, code change, blah, 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 blue, recompile. And, it communicates with this API and that API and that API. We'll only devote maybe 5 guys to the Windows Phone / Android side, and we'll be good. Maybe that's okay, but that's Facebook. So, they got hundreds of people on staff that they have the manpower to do so. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll get off my soapbox. We'll see. But another thing that they officially announced, though, was the official name for Project Spartan. Now, I was kind of hoping they would call it Microsoft Spartan. I wanted it to continue to have this Halo theme because, Cortana, if you don't already know, is that, your helper, the little avatar helper in Halo, and saying, this is Cortana, she's on Windows Phone and Windows 10 and this and that. Like, people would at that point not necessarily connect it to Halo, but I just liked having, and I'm not even a big Halo person, but I just liked having the kind of callback to Halo. But in any event, Project Spartan is now been officially named Microsoft Edge. And according to Joe Belfiore, the reason why they wanted to call it Edge is because they believe that they're being on the edge of consuming and creating. And they have a pretty good, I think it's like a minute and 20-second video on the Microsoft YouTube channel introducing Microsoft Edge for Windows 10. And in the browser itself, there's not a lot of new upgrades, except for the fact that now it will support extensions similar to that of Chrome and Firefox. So that's pretty awesome. Like I said, at my home computer, I use Chrome, not because I think it's better. I think it's worse than Internet Explorer. And I'm not the first one to say this. It's so RAM heavy, and I really don't get any major benefits of it. I don't use Chromecast of the tab capability, but I do use extensions. And having those extensions with LastPass and other applications is really key, because then I don't have to go to the LastPass website and just click on the extension and there it is, and get all my password information. And now Microsoft is allowing that in Microsoft Edge. So I guess I'll have to get used to calling it Edge. Edge will be using the new rendering engine. Um, and it's going to be available by default. It will be the default search. It will be the default browser on all Windows 10 devices. IE 11 will strictly be used for legacy scenarios, and that's really more so for like the enterprise people, like big businesses. If they've developed their internal websites on IE 11 or IE 9, for example, then they're going to have to backdate to IE 11, at least for the time being, until they update their intranets. But there's a lot of websites that are out there that are part of the new modern web, and IE 11 just isn't up to date with it. It's not as fast with that. I mean, that's the other thing. Chrome is faster, I guess. I just don't like it. Although it slows down. There are certain things that Chrome can be faster with, but Microsoft Edge is not proven, but they've promised that it is a lighter browser, and it will be shipped in the next few weeks as a part of the Windows 10 technical preview. So for right now, it's still Project Spartan on Windows 10. But keep an eye out. If you're on the fast track, I'm sure you'll be able to download it sooner than later. And if you want to know what the Microsoft Edge icon looks like, it actually doesn't look too much different from the Internet Explorer icon. There it is. So, the one concern was that, like, when my granddad turns on his new Windows 10 computer, he's not going to know where the Internet Explorer is anymore because it's not going to be an E. Well, it is. It's still an E. It's still an E, and he'll still be able to use it with no problems whatsoever. And to iterate about Microsoft Edge, so you have web note capability, so you can annotate the website. You have a much better reader capability, so it gets rid of all the ads, and you're able to read an article in a column form. You have Cortana built in throughout the whole ecosystem of the browser, so you can highlight a word. And so, for example, if you're not quite sure what Kathmandu is, so you could highlight Kathmandu, right click, and Ask Cortana would be one of the options to use. And you would ask Cortana, and a knowledge graph would kind of slide in from the right and tell you all about Kathmandu, the flag, population, its elevation, news about Kathmandu, a direct link to Bing Maps, so you can look it up on Bing Maps, things like that. Also, in the search bar, you would be able to type in things like weather, and it would probably already know, like, oh, you're asking about weather of San Francisco, and it would automatically in the search bar kind of show you like a 5-day weather forecast. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. So yeah, they're doing a lot of really awesome things on the browser extensions. Can't wait to see how they run, alongside with Chrome and things like that. And finally, the last thing I want to mention was HoloLens. Oh my God, I was so happy. All the live demos that they had with HoloLens this time around. They had an architect. Well, I guess it wasn't really a live demo, but they showed an architect using HoloLens to communicate and show off, some architectural rendered designs of buildings to their clients before they even get into like actually building it. And it's one of those things where, if you're an architect, you have to build a model every time there's a change. It's like, okay, well, let's make that slope at 80 degrees. No, let's change it back. We put it back to 60 degrees. Actually, can we do it can get so tedious so quickly. I actually want to be an architect when I was a kid because I love building models, but I just love building models the one time, and then I'll move on to the next model. And I don't need someone telling me that, that needs to be like that, that needs to be like that. Oh, actually, scratch that. That needs to be like. I just don't want to deal with that. Plus, I'm terrible with math, so go figure. But they demonstrated, I forget what the company name was. Maybe it's in this article here. But they demonstrated one of their partners that are using HoloLens, and how it would be in a real world situation for architects. And then on stage, they also showed off HoloLens, how it would be if it were a medical kind of experience. So they had a doctor come out, or I guess he was a professor. And what he did was he had his helper, as a medical student, how do you learn about the body? Textbooks, the internet, and dead people. I mean, it is what it is, right? And the thing about dead people is, well, they're dead. And without due respect to them, it can't really show you, like, this is how the cardiovascular system works. This is how the muscle looks when you move the arm this way. And with HoloLens, you would have this full size body in real time, real space. You can walk all the way around it, poke fun at it, at its little butt, or whatever you want to do. And you would be able to tell the system, show me all the musculars, show me all the muscles, and it'll show you the muscles. And you could lift up this inanimate, projected human being, so you could see how the muscle would work. And like, show me the cardiovascular system. You see the blood running. Show me the heart. The heart could enlarge. You could walk around the heart, do a half section of the heart to see the internals of the heart. I mean, it was just amazing how detailed developers can get. And it is 1000% up to developers to make all of this stuff real. But the fact of the matter is that it's already kind of real because people are using it, not in a widespread, experience. It's not a whole school that's using it. I think it's really maybe 1 or 2 departments at this particular research facility that's using it. But even if it was just one department and one research firm and just one, well, NASA's using it, we know this, and we and one architectural firm was using it. The fact that it's, like, to a degree somewhat successful is just mind-boggling. And they also showed, like, they didn't really talk about too much how HoloLens works. Like, they didn't really talk about, like, what the battery amperage was, what kind of cameras they're using. They just said, we have all this hardware, all these sensors. We need to be able to do all this stuff and make it fit on anybody's head. It was well weighted. People didn't feel like they were enclosed, so they might be claustrophobic or anything like that. They just kind of showed how they miniaturized all the stuff that they had on the table, and then down to HoloLens. And even so, it was spectacular. And the last demo that they had was they had this maker robot come out on stage, and it was a very bare bone kind of robot. I mean, it was more advanced than I could probably ever build. I'm sure my son could do some pretty amazing things with it. But if you're watching the live stream right now, I'll show you. So the robot looked like this in real life. It looked very basic. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's a robot. We know this. But if you're viewing the robot through HoloLens, it looked like this. And he's a cute little robot, and it's augmented reality overlay of a cute little robot. And he says hello, and he can wave at you, and you could pinpoint on the floor where you want the robot to go. And even if someone stood in its way, it's smart enough. I don't know if this part is more HoloLens or more of the robot smart, but it's smart enough to be able to see that you're in its way and then move around you, so it wouldn't crash into you. So this is oops. I think Shockwave froze on me, but you get the picture. I mean, oh, here we go. Yeah, here. So it knows distance. It can it knows points of reference in real space, in real time. So that was probably one of the cooler demos that I've seen using robots and using HoloLens. So I'm very excited, and I could tell when they were talking about HoloLens and saying, we need this in the hands of developers, and all the developers are, yes, you do. It's like, we need to build these amazing apps to bring to the public out there. It's like, yes, you do. For all of you that are here today, we have, what did they say? We have hundreds of HoloLens devices. for you to test while you're here. Like, oh, I can't take it home. It's like, oh, darn. Okay, but hey, they got to test out HoloLens, and I've got to say, like, I had a smidgen possibility of being able to go to Build today, and I guess it's a good. I didn't wake up in time, anyways, but and it's a small possibility. And I gotta say, if I was at Build, I would be just like raving stark mad, just crazy, because I've dealt with virtual reality. I've dealt with augmented reality, but nothing to the level of augmented reality of this, where I mean, it's going to be a catered demo, right? It's going to be, what do they call it? It's not a catered demo, but it's going to be like it's a scripted demo. Like when you put the HoloLens on, they're going to tell you what you should do. Like I don't think that they just let everyone just kind of put the HoloLens on and run free and do whatever the hell that they wanted. I don't know. Maybe they did. I haven't seen anybody talk about their firsthand experience yet. I got to check it out. But even if it is a scripted demo that you have to follow the instructions of, hit here, look over to your left, look to your right, the people that I have talked to that have tried the first iteration of HoloLens still said it blew their mind. Said it was just freaking amazing and they can't wait for the final product. And that was the other thing. We were hoping to get a more definitive answer as to how much and when HoloLens would be coming out. I don't know if it is something that will be coming out simultaneously to the launch of Windows 10. Maybe we'll find out more at E3, because HoloLens will now support the Unity engine for gaming. This is freaking insane that we will eventually be able to do like real-time first-person shooters, for example, or whatever game that you're interested in real space, and you could run around, because we've seen first-person shooters in Oculus Rift and those other virtual reality visors and things like that. And when you're walking around, you're not really walking around. You have a little directional pad on your controller or something, or you're on a track or something. But with HoloLens, you're not tied to anything. Hell, you're not even tied to a phone. You can throw your phone out the window and it's all self-contained. And you get into the battlefield, and even if you are in, I don't know, SFSU, San Francisco State University, it would overlay on top of the existing, landscape, a new landscape for you to do your first-person shooter with. And this is just me kind of wigging out about it, but I just think that is crazy. It's amazing. I'm a little scared about how much the initial developer unit's going to be, but I'll tell you this. If it's around $500, which I know I think that's a little bit too much to ask, but if it's around $500, you best believe this guy's thrown down. Don't tell my wife, but this guy's thrown down. Don't tell my wife. Okay, so that is enough of Windows for right now. If there was something that you found out about Build that you thought was super uber awesome and I didn't talk about it, or if you want to know something else about Build that wasn't answered and maybe I do know the answer to it, let me know. Either way, you can put it in the comments or you can put it in the Q&A of this chat that we have going on right now. And even if you're watching on your mobile device, you can go into the Q&A. It'll open up your browser and you'll watch this live through your browser. But you can, at least I think so. I don't know. I have to double check that. Okay, go to your computer and get into the Q&A and ask your question. But I'd love to hear your any responses, comments, or questions that you have about what was announced at Build. I'd say the last thing that people kind of glossed over, and I'm going to gloss over it as well too, is that on Windows Phone or Windows Mobile, I guess they're calling it Windows Mobile now. It's going to support carrier billing. That's cool. And that's good. I mean, that's fine. I mean, iOS and Android do that too. And I guess it's all dependent on the carrier. I'm on Verizon here in the United States, and I pay my bill on time all the time, but they disallowed the carrier billing for me specifically, like my whole account. But my friends have carrier billing, and they're not better than me, are they? I don't know. Moving over to Google. Today, um, Google launched a new Chrome extension, which actually is pretty cool. I haven't installed it myself, so I'm probably going to do this after the fact. But Google's new Chrome extension is called the Password Alert Chrome extension, and it does exactly that. When it's installed, users will be notified when they've entered their Google password into a non-Google site. So this alert comes after a user has, followed the requests of, like entering your credentials. And so if you are using your password in a non-Google site, Google would basically say, no, 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 don't use that password because you've already used that password. So that's one. Then another one is that if someone does get a hold of your password and they try to enter it into like your bank account, uh, you will receive an email or a notification saying your Gmail password or your Google password was just exposed to a non Gmail login. You should immediately change your password to keep your Gmail account secure and make sure that your Gmail password is not reused in any other service. So I can't tell you how many times I talk to people and I tell them that your password is the gateway to everything that is about you. It's like, no, all I do is I get spam. I don't get a lot of things in my email. You get bank statements, right? You get 401k statements, right? I mean, even if you don't, let's say you're 16, you don't have 401k yet. Maybe you do. I don't know. You get something in your email that is valuable because for the most part, if the argument is, oh, I don't really care about my privacy, then show me your email. Open it up and let me scour it. For the most part, you wouldn't want me to do that. So you need your passwords to all be different. So the password that you log in for Flickr is not the same password as it is for Gmail because that would be stupid. I'll be blunt. That is just dumb. If you're just trying to be convenient, convenience in the internet and security do not go hand in hand. All right. So use a password manager. And more importantly, when you use the password manager, the password to get into said password manager also has to be very unique. So all of the different passwords that are in there, they could all be different. I have about 89 to 100 different logins, and each and every one of those logins have a different password. There's no way I'm going to remember all of them. And in the beginning, before I dealt with all this, I had maybe 3 passwords that I would use. And it was cool because if it wasn't the first password, I knew it had to be the third or second password for me to get into whatever the website was. And it was easy to manage. But in this day and age, you need to sacrifice your convenience for your security, especially if you're responsible for other people. If you're married or if you've got kids, you don't want to deal with the ramifications of what could happen just because you have the same password on 2 or 3 different websites. Trust me, I've heard way too many horror stories. I got hacked myself. Nothing bad happened, but something bad could have happened. And that is just not something that you want to do. So again, if you're using Chrome, you can install this password alert as a Chrome extension. It's free. And once again, if you're using the Gmail password, because obviously Google knows your Gmail password, if you're using it in a non-Gmail login, they're going to tell you, hey, don't do that. Stop that. Use something else. Figure it out. Maybe change it up. Throw 1 in there. Something. Make it backwards. I think that is very responsible of Google. But then at that point, it becomes up to you as the user to take that responsibility into your own hands and have a password that is completely different and unique. So again, I'm going to get off my soapbox about that, but I feel very passionate about that. especially with the security breaches from what could have happened. Well, what did happen up in Canada with Heartbleed. My insurance company, they got hacked. I have nothing to do with that, but I have to use that insurance company. And so now that insurance company, obviously they have credit. They're giving me a free year of credit report and things like that. But I mean, it's just things like that that I would not want to have had happen to me. And I'm telling my son at his early age, um, I wrote down his password. He's like, I can't remember this. Like, that's good. What you need to remember is where you are going to put it in your room. But I don't want you to remember your password, because what's going to happen is that you're just going to, I just want to deal with this one password. Obviously, okay, let me double back. There might be one or two passwords that you might want to remember, like maybe your bank password. Let's just say you're in a situation that you, for whatever reason, you have access to your bank website, but you don't have access to your password management system. So, like, I guess that would be one scenario where remembering that would be beneficial. But it's got to be like A ampersand L uppercase T lowercase V 129. It's got to be something like that. Oh crap, that was my Gmail password. No, it's not. I'm just kidding. I don't know my Gmail password. All right, moving on. Now, I'm a huge fan of wearables, and in the LTG verse, I think I'm the only person of all of us that really have been excited about Android Wear. And I did own an Android Wear device for a short amount of time. Unfortunately, I had to return it just because of finances and things like that. But for the 6 hours that I owned it, I thought it was cool. I was getting like notifications left and right. I'm like, oh, sweet, swipey, swipey, swipey. Look at me. Da 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 da. But it just I couldn't really outweigh the benefits of getting notifications on my wrists and not being able to pay rent. So it was kind of one of those things. Here's an Android Wear watch that would be an issue for me for at least 3 to 4 months. Taggear, they have announced that their first Android Wear watch will cost $1,400. I was listening to a podcast and they said how to properly pronounce Taggear. Let's look at this. How do you pronounce Taggear? Let's see. How to pronounce the brand Taggear. And there's a YouTube video here. There better not be an ad. Tag Heuer. Tag Heuer has an Android Wear watch, $1,400. Okay, so let's look at this. So you guys already saw the picture of it. That's the base price, and I don't know what else they could do to make it more expensive. Gold, obviously. Still nowhere as expensive as an Apple Watch Edition, which is $10,000 plus. But they let's see. They talked about. All right, here's what we do know about it. It will have 40 hours of battery life, which is just a little under 2 days, and it's obviously going to run the latest version of Android Wear, which I think is Android Wear 5.1.1, and that supports Wi-Fi and things like that. So that's cool. And it's Android Wear. I mean, what's to say? I mean, if you've been watching my show here, you pretty much know like the most up to date with the Android Wear. We have the ability now to sync multiple Android Wear devices to your body. Cool. And some of you are like, why would I want to wear 2 Android Wear watches on my body? That's dumb. Yes, that is dumb. But Android Wear isn't just watches. It's wear. It's wearable. So it'll be your watch, maybe the next iteration of Google Glass, smart underwear. I don't know. But any of those things that are IoT, Android Wear related, your phone would now be capable of syncing all of those. So, hey, there's your answer. The other thing too, like I mentioned, Wi-Fi. So it would be able to support Wi-Fi notifications. So even if you left your phone at home and you went to, your office, it's like, oh, I forgot my phone. Well, luckily I've got my watch, so I can still get all of my email notifications and still get all of the sports notifications. of the Giants. Hey, wait, how the Giants do against Dodgers? Oh, freaking Giants. Okay. Just can't win. I think we won yesterday. It was like 2-1 still. Freaking Dodgers. All right. But this is cool. It's Tag Heuer is they're an upscale, watch company. I own a $400 Tag Heuer, which I didn't buy. My father gifted it to me. But when you know that brand and you know what you're getting, you're no longer getting the really intricate internals of a Tag Heuer. What you're at this point, you're more so paying for the brand of saying this is a Tag Heuer watch that has smart capabilities, and all the innards are components and diodes and lithium ion batteries and things like that. But the casing is still Tag Heuer, and the casing is what is very reminiscent and recognizable of a Tag Heuer watch, same as like a Movado or a Rolex, things like that. So I'm looking at this watch, and let me bring it up on screen again so you guys can see its glory, see it in all of its glory. And that looks so much like, so see, I don't know if that watch there is the Android Wear watch. I think that's an actual Tag Heuer watch. I don't know. I think that's just a Tag Heuer watch, to be honest with you. Because according to the article, an executive from Tag Heuer, Jean-Claude Biver, said that they talked about the watch battery and a little bit more, but they didn't talk about like what the watch itself is actually going to look like. So maybe they'll reveal it later on this year. Maybe they'll reveal it at Google I/O and give it to all the people that are going. And guess who's going? Not this guy. So we'll find out. We will definitely see. Very excited for Google I/O and WWDC from Apple. See, it's many W's because Apple is everywhere. But you know where Apple is not at? They're not at the top. Ooh, that's a segue. They're not at the top when it comes to the world's largest smartphone vendor. According to a statement, Samsung in Q1 of 2015 has now reclaimed their number one spot for the number one vendor of shipped smartphones in Q1 of 2015. This is really interesting because the S6 wasn't out until Q2 2015, but their earnings were big enough to take down Apple. So let's break this down. There were 345 million units shipped, 83.2 million units that Samsung was responsible. So that's a combination of Apple, Lenovo, Motorola, and Huawei. So let's let that sink in. 345 million handsets shipped across Lenovo, Huawei, Samsung, and Apple. Samsung shipped 83.2 million. Apple shipped 61.2 million. Huawei shipped 17.3 million. And Lenovo Motorola shipped 18.8. Now, comparing that to last quarter, it's a little hard with Motorola and Lenovo because they just merged. Not last quarter, but last quarter. They just recently merged, and I guess the Nexus 6 is like probably a Motorola Lenovo. Well, it seems like the brainchild of that company. In Hawaii, they're so small compared to the other giants that are out there, but they're in the top 4, which is amazing. And again, this is worldwide, and Hawaii is very, very popular in Asia. So this doesn't mean, however, and this is the continuing argument between shipped and sold. This doesn't mean that Samsung has sold more than Apple. I guess it could to a degree, but it just means that they shipped. They went from this place and to this place, and it's waiting at said place, but it hasn't yet exchanged hands into a consumer. What we need to completely, and I don't mean me need, but analysts need to completely, in a sense, show if Apple has been taken over from the number one spot by Samsung are concrete sales numbers. We had some sales numbers from Apple on Monday when it came to their overall sales numbers and their profit margins with iPhone. And thanks to the middle class of China, they're doing freaking amazing. I just, did you guys see how many billions of dollars Samsung has in cash? It's just insane. But the thing about it is, Samsung, they say so. Apple has billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in cash. But even with that being said, Samsung makes a crap ton more than Apple. Did you know the two largest building structures in Dubai were were built by Samsung? Did you know Samsung has their own military division? Did you know that the S in Galaxy S6 stands for super smart? These are things that I learned on Monday when I was watching this video about the history of Samsung, and it's just like any other kind of video. It's very uh, humble beginnings, and now they're just this giant. And what how many divisions that they have? I think they have over 80 divisions, and the amount of employees that they have are basically, if you were to combine the employees of Apple, Google, and Facebook, and it would still be smaller than the amount of people that Samsung are hired by. So it's still amazing that at the end of the day, as much credence as we give to Apple, Samsung just does so many things, and they make a crap ton of money. But yeah, I guess this is a good thing for Samsung, especially for the analysts and especially for their stock and their investors. So we'll see, like, as time moves on. I think people, now that the S6 is out, I think people are at least now able to really truly kind of put side by side between the iPhone 6 and the Galaxy S6 and find out, which one really is better for them. Because up until that point, really the only option was the iPhone 6. And there have been some iPhone 6 users saying, "Oh, like I kind of like that S6 and the S6 Edge. That's pretty sexy." So, yeah. Well, that's it for me. I know we went a little long, and I think also I started a little late, so I apologize for that. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, or any emotional outbursts, don't give me any emotional outbursts. I can't handle it. I just don't want to deal with it. But anything else, comments at lazytechguys.com. You can email us right there. You can call us at 707-722-5299. Or if you want to just direct all of your amazing love and affection, no, just all that good stuff, please. Thank you. You can hit me up directly on Twitter at LTG Tony, which is right here, right? LTG Tony. Or on Google Plus Tony Handies. Yeah, that's what we do now. Plus Tony Handies. After this, I'm actually going to finish my dinner, but then I'm going to be editing a video for this really awesome case for Surface Pro 3 by UAG. I know I reviewed it, or I reviewed a case for the Nexus, but this case, this case. All right, so yeah, so I'll probably be cutting that and editing and rendering and throwing it up onto our YouTube channel, Lazy Tech TV on YouTube. You can subscribe to that. We have our podcast that we do on weekly on Tuesday nights. We're kind of put that on a little bit hiatus, but I'll still be doing my mobile moment show as much as I can, if the gym gods allow me. But thanks for joining. If you want to get a cup of coffee, not going to happen. Just too busy. But you have a good one. I'll talk to you later. I'm loopy, but take care. Bye.